Ever since the beginning of time, organisms have adapted and changed to better suit their environments through genetic mutation and natural selection. However, human beings are the only organism on Earth that have ever used this to their advantage. You may know the term domesticated, that could be referred to an animal or plant, and what that means is that human beings bred that animal or plant to exhibit a certain trait that they wanted to exploit or use to their advantage. Now, of course, you also will see co-beneficial evolutionary traits and a lot. A very notable example of domestication would be the breeding of wolves to dogs, which has happened over the past 30,000 years, in which human beings just bred wolves that were docile, and just kept doing that until eventually you got from a wolf to a cocker spaniel. But what's important to recognize about domestication and natural selection is that this happens over a long amount of time naturally. Now, with the discovery of DNA in 1935, human beings have been trying to figure out how they can manipulate that in order to basically domesticate things extremely faster. It wasn't until the 1980s that the first genetically modified organism existed, and it was a single-celled bacteria, which isn't very impressive, but about a decade later, in 1994, the first genetically modified plant was introduced to the public market, which was a tomato, and its genetic modification was that it would stay ripe longer in the store. Now, this could have been naturally done by breeding certain tomato plants that stayed natural over a course of time. You could just keep breeding them, and eventually you would have the same thing, and it would be natural. Now, this has been going on, genetically modifying organisms, for the past 22 years, and what we come to now is a point where we want to use that science towards human beings and genetically modifying them. And at first it sounds like a very wonderful thing. People born with genetic conditions, or people worried about passing on certain traits to their kids, that all can be fixed. And of course that is a very valiant thing, and I'm glad to see that that's something that people are doing. But what no one is thinking about is what happens once you help all those people. People are going to become more self-centered, and they're going to want to make people better, faster, and stronger. And then the moral dilemma you come to that point is that you'll essentially have GMO'd people that have been genetically modified to be better, and the question is, what happens then to society once there are essentially two populations of people? You have genetically modified people, which are superior. I mean, like scientifically, they are superior to human beings. And what that does. And essentially, if you use genetics to make every generation a little smarter, eventually we will see an exponential growth in this. So essentially, you'll have human beings continue to be human beings for several generations, but these genetically modified people will be perfect in an amount greater than that we can't imagine. They would be almost gods to us. And the question then is, what happens once they recognize that they're better than human beings? I mean, look at what human beings have done with the belief of supremacy. And I mean, it isn't even true, but the Holocaust, apartheid in Africa, just all of these awful things that human beings do with the belief of supremacy. Now, what happens when that is true? When there are organisms who are truly better, faster, and stronger, they are the alpha predator. They are better than us, and they're still human. So all you can conclude is that they'll do what a human will do. They'll turn on us. They'll kill us. They'll enslave us. They'll do anything to ensure that they become the dominant people, and they'll take advantage of us, exploit us, and eventually it'll just be GMO'd people. And it's that change that people need to recognize. I'm all for it. I think that that change is just natural and it needs to happen, but people need to understand that that's a reality of genetically modifying people.